When you step away from someone's life, when you choose silence instead of constant presence, you trigger a shift in the very way they perceive your worth. Human beings often fail to recognize the value of what they have until it is gone. As long as you are readily available, answering every call, replying to every message, showing up whenever they demand your time, they assume your presence is guaranteed. They treat it as though it is ordinary, as if it will always be there. But the moment you withdraw and let time create distance, something powerful happens. The absence begins to create value. What once felt casual, even mundane, now becomes rare, precious, and unforgettable. People only measure the weight of silence when they've gotten used to the sound of your voice. They only recognize the warmth of presence when the coldness of absence settles in. By removing yourself, you give space for realization to bloom. Time becomes the sculptor, carving clarity into their mind, reminding them that what they dismissed was never ordinary. That empty chair at the table, the messages that no longer come through, the laughter that used to echo but now feels like a memory, all of these become reminders of what they once had and no longer hold. Absence is not weakness. It is the most powerful demonstration of strength. Anyone can cling, beg, or chase, but it takes a person of discipline and inner confidence to step back and allow space to speak louder than words. When you give that space, when you let silence do the talking, the other person is left with nothing but the echo of what they lost. And the longer that echo lasts, the more haunting it becomes. At first, they may feel relief, even freedom, believing that your absence will not matter. But as days stretch into weeks and weeks turn into months, that relief slowly shifts into a gnawing discomfort, a growing ache that cannot be ignored. It is in absence that people begin to count the details they overlooked. They remember the way you cared, the encouragement you gave, the stability you offered, the energy you carried into their life. They begin to realize that no one else replicates those things in the same way. They might search for distractions, new people, new experiences, but the truth is, what is genuine cannot be replaced by substitutes. The absence begins to highlight the uniqueness of who you are. This is the hidden law of value. The less available something is, the more valuable it becomes. You can think of it the same way rare metals, rare art, or rare opportunities are treasured. Their scarcity amplifies their worth. When you are no longer easily accessible, you move from being taken for granted to being deeply desired. This is why your silence, your distance, your absence carries so much power. It transforms you into something rare, something missed, something unforgettable. And here's the irony. When you were there, offering your presence daily, they may not have noticed it. But when you step back, every small detail of your absence grows larger in their mind. The good morning texts that no longer arrive, the comfort they once leaned on that is now gone, the laughter that used to be effortless. All of these simple gestures suddenly hold massive weight because they are no longer present. Time magnifies them. Time sharpens the awareness. Time makes the absence unbearable. You must understand that you do not need to fight for recognition. You do not need to force anyone to value you. When you step back, time will become your greatest ally. It works slowly, invisibly, but undeniably. Each day that passes without you is another day that chisels away at their ignorance. They may not admit it. They may even act as though they are unaffected, but inside the silence grows louder. People can mask many things, but they cannot hide the ache of losing someone who brought genuine meaning to their life. Absence is also a test, not of them, but of you. It tests your ability to remain firm, to not give in to the temptation of returning to. Soon, many break this silence because they want to relieve their own discomfort, not realizing that in doing so, they relieve the discomfort of the one who wronged them. The true strength is in standing still, in letting absence accumulate its power. The more time passes, the more weight your silence carries. The longer you are away, the clearer it becomes to them that your presence was never ordinary. It was a gift. When you understand this, you stop begging to be seen. You stop trying to explain your worth. You stop exhausting yourself, proving to someone else that you matter. You simply withdraw and allow the natural law of absence to do its work. People will always feel the sting of losing something valuable, and time makes that sting sharper with every passing day. The longer you are away, the more they will miss you, the more they will regret, the more they will see that what they thought was replaceable was in fact irreplaceable. The moment you create distance from someone, you force them into a place they can no longer escape, the place of self-reflection. While your presence gave them comfort, support, and a shield from their own inner emptiness, your absence takes away all those distractions and leaves them to face themselves. Distance is not just physical, it is emotional, mental, and spiritual. And the longer it stretches, the louder the silence becomes, demanding that they reflect on what was lost and what cannot easily be regained. Reflection is not something people willingly do when they feel secure and comfortable. It comes when they are stripped of what they once assumed would always be there. At first, distance may feel insignificant to them. They may occupy their time with noise, distractions, and other people, convincing themselves that they are fine without you. But as time passes, when the laughter fades, when the replacements lose their shine, when the distractions no longer satisfy, they are left with the undeniable truth that something essential is missing. The nights grow heavier, the mornings feel emptier, and the little triggers in daily life start to bring memories of you back into focus. A scent, a song, a phrase, suddenly these simple things become reminders that reflection cannot be avoided. What people often fail to realize is that when someone withdraws their presence, they also withdraw their energy, their influence, and their unique contribution to another person's life. That absence forces the other person to question themselves. They begin to reflect not only on what they lost, but also on why they lost it. They replay conversations, they recall their actions, they analyze their decisions. The same things they once dismissed now echo in their mind with piercing clarity. Reflection becomes a mirror that exposes their mistakes, their pride, and their negligence. It shows them how they undervalued what should have been cherished. Distance transforms time into a teacher. With every day that passes, the lessons become harder to ignore. They begin to see the contrast between how life felt with you and how it feels without you. That contrast creates an inner conflict, one that grows stronger the more they try to silence it. They may not admit it outwardly, they may not show it publicly, but internally the reflection is constant, knowing, and unrelenting. They can't stop themselves from remembering your words, your kindness, your strength, and your presence, because the human mind naturally gravitates toward what it no longer has. This process of reflection is painful because it strips away illusions. In your presence, they may have fooled themselves into thinking they had endless options, endless time, endless chances. But in your absence, they come to realize how finite life is, how rare true connection is, and how dangerous it is to take it for granted. The mirror of reflection never lies. It shows them the raw reality they tried to avoid. It forces them to confront that maybe they were careless, maybe they were selfish, maybe they made the mistake of believing you would always be there regardless of how they treated you. The longer you allow distance, the deeper the reflection cuts. It begins to dig into their soul, revealing layers of guilt, regret, and longing. Even the smallest moments shared with you grow in magnitude. A conversation that once felt insignificant now plays in their mind with weight and importance. A glance, a smile, a word of encouragement. All of these replay like echoes that will not die down. They begin to understand that what they once dismissed so easily is now haunting them, and the haunting only intensifies with time. What makes reflection so powerful is that it does not require your effort, it requires your absence. You do not need to argue, explain, or prove anything. Distance alone becomes the silent force that brings the truth to the surface. While they are left to wrestle with their thoughts, you are free to grow, heal, and elevate. And the more you grow in your absence, the sharper the reflection becomes for them. Because now they not only remember what you were, but also see what you are becoming without them. That realization creates a deeper sense of loss, one that time refuses to soften. Distance is like a mirror that grows clearer every day. At first, it may look foggy, blurred by their pride or their distractions. But as weeks turn into months, that mirror becomes sharp, and the image staring back at them cannot be denied. They see the reality of their actions, they feel the ache of their decisions, and they understand the gravity of what they let slip away. This reflection often hurts more than the initial loss, because while losing someone can sometimes feel like chance, realizing you lost them because of your own neglect is a wound that cuts much deeper. Reflection born from distance is not temporary, it lingers. The more time passes, the more it embeds itself into their mind, creating an inner voice that will not let them rest. They can attempt to silence it with distractions, but in the stillness of the night, when the world grows quiet, that reflection speaks the loudest. It whispers truths they tried to ignore, it magnifies mistakes they once minimized, and it makes them face the reality that life without you does not carry the same meaning as it did with you. Patience is not simply waiting, it is the highest demonstration of power and discipline. Anyone can react, anyone can chase, anyone can demand immediate answers when they feel neglected or unappreciated, but it takes a different kind of strength to remain calm and allow time to reveal the truth. Patience is not passive. It is active control over your emotions, your impulses, and your desire for instant gratification. When you choose patience over reaction, you prove to yourself and to the world that you are in command of your life, not at the mercy of someone else's behavior. In relationships, this principle becomes even more powerful. When someone pulls away, ignores you, or underestimates your worth, the natural reaction is to run after them, to explain, to prove, to beg for recognition. But this reaction diminishes your value because it signals that you do not believe in your own worth unless it is validated by them. Patience, on the other hand, sends the opposite message. It says, I know who I am, and I will not compromise that truth by chasing what does not recognize it. When you are patient, you create space for the other person to see what they are losing, while you protect your dignity and self-respect. Patience is the weapon of those who know their value. It is not laziness, it is not weakness, and it is not indifference. It is the deliberate choice to let the natural flow of time expose reality. By being patient, you are saying that you do not need to rush outcomes because the truth will always reveal itself in due time. The one who left will eventually confront the emptiness you once filled. The silence you once replaced with laughter, the comfort you once provided. But if you interrupt the process by returning too soon, by breaking the silence out of fear, you rob yourself of the power that patience could have given you. There is a deep wisdom in waiting. Time works on your behalf when you do not interfere with it. Think of it as planting a seed. You cannot plant a seed and then dig it up every day to see if it has grown. Growth takes time, and patience is the soil that nurtures it. When you allow space, when you remain disciplined, the absence begins to do its work. The other person slowly feels the weight of your distance, and the more patient you are, the heavier that weight becomes. Their mind starts to wander, their emotions begin to stir, and their heart begins to long for what it once dismissed. Patience also teaches you about yourself. It reveals your own capacity to endure without breaking, to remain steady without chasing. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you silence the impulse to explain yourself, you become stronger. You train your mind to operate from strength rather than weakness, from confidence rather than insecurity. And as you grow in this discipline, the energy you radiate shifts. You no longer look desperate. You no longer look available at any cost. You begin to embody the aura of someone rare, someone valuable, someone who does not beg to be seen. The power of patience is that it flips the dynamic. When you are patient, you shift the burden from yourself to them. Instead of you struggling with fear of loss, they begin to struggle with the fear of missing out. Instead of you worrying about their next move, they begin to wonder about yours. Time combined with patience creates curiosity, and curiosity creates longing. The longer you hold your ground, the more their thoughts circle back to you, because patience creates a void they cannot escape. Most people fail at this because they confuse patience with waiting idly. True patience is not sitting in pain, hoping for change. It is using the silence and the space to grow, to elevate, and to become better. While they reflect, you are building. While they wrestle with regret, you are expanding your life. Patience, therefore, is not about doing nothing. It is about focusing on yourself while allowing time to do the heavy lifting in their mind. This is why patience is so powerful. Not only does it magnify your absence in their life, but it also magnifies your presence in your own. The discipline of patience is rare because it requires faith in yourself. It requires believing that you are enough, that you are valuable, and that you do not need to chase to prove it. When you embrace patience, you step into your true authority. You no longer live by the whims of another person's attention. You live by your own sense of worth. And that shift is magnetic. The energy of someone who is patient, calm, and grounded is far more attractive than the energy of someone who is restless, anxious, and desperate. Patience communicates confidence. It communicates that you know your worth cannot be diminished by time, and that anyone who fails to see it will eventually come to terms with their mistake. It is a silent strength, one that requires no words, no explanations, no proving. By waiting, you show that you are not afraid of loss, because you understand that what is meant for you cannot be taken, and what walks away will eventually feel the pain of absence. Regret is one of the heaviest emotions a person can carry, and it rarely arrives in the beginning. At first, when someone believes they can live without you, when they think your presence is not essential, they may even feel a sense of freedom. They tell themselves they made the right choice, that they don't need you, that they can replace you with ease. But as time begins to stretch on, and the silence of your absence grows louder, that confidence begins to fade. What felt like liberation slowly transforms into an ache, a reminder of something valuable they let slip away. The longer they go without you, the sharper the sting becomes, because regret is magnified in the passing of time. Regret has a unique way of creeping in quietly. It does not show up immediately because pride often shields it. People convince themselves that they are fine, that they can fill the emptiness with new faces, new experiences, new distractions. They laugh louder, they stay busier, they pretend that nothing has changed. But no matter how many distractions they chase, none of them can erase the reality of what they lost. And the truth about regret is that it does not need your presence to thrive. It grows in your absence. The less they hear your voice, the less they feel your energy, the less they see you in their world, the more they begin to realize what that absence truly means. Every small memory begins to carry weight. A moment that once felt ordinary takes on extraordinary meaning when it is no longer possible to experience it again. The little ways you supported them, the laughter that filled empty spaces, the comfort you gave when things were difficult, all of these moments rise to the surface of their mind. What they once dismissed as small gestures now look like irreplaceable treasures. Time has a way of amplifying these details until they cannot be ignored. And with that amplification comes regret, a deep gnawing realization that they undervalued something rare. Regret grows more painful with each day that passes because time does not soften what was genuine. Instead, it sharpens it. When days become weeks and weeks become months, the realization sets in that no one else has filled the void you left. Other people may have passed through their life, but none carry the same depth. None bring the same peace. None spark the same sense of connection. They start to recognize that what they had with you was not ordinary. It was unique. In neglecting it, they made a mistake. That mistake becomes heavier the longer it sits with them, and time ensures that the weight cannot be easily ignored. This is why distance and silence are so powerful. They give room for regret to blossom without interference. When you do not rush back, when you do not try to fix what they broke, When you allow time to work, regret becomes their constant companion. They begin to replay conversations in their head, analyzing the moments they could have done differently. They think about the times you needed them and they weren't there. They remember the times you gave your best and they gave their least. These reflections hurt because they cannot be undone. Regret is born in the realization that the past cannot be rewritten, and the longer time goes on, the clearer that truth becomes. There is also an emotional imbalance that regret creates. In the beginning, they may have believed they had the upper hand, that they could walk away without consequence. But over time, the power shifts. The silence they once welcomed begins to torment them. The space they thought they wanted now feels like emptiness they cannot fill. Their pride begins to battle with their heart, and every day that passes tilts the balance further in favor of regret. What once felt like control becomes a prison of their own making. They thought they were strong without you, but time proves that strength was only temporary bravado. Regret magnified by time is not just about missing you. It is about realizing the truth of their own choices. It forces them to see how they mishandled something precious, how they ignored signs, how they took for granted what others searched for their entire lives. The silence reminds them daily that they had something many people never experienced, and they let it slip away. That thought alone becomes unbearable because time does not let them escape it. Each sunrise without you is a reminder. Each night spent in loneliness is evidence, and each attempt to replace you only highlights the depth of their mistake. What makes this regret more painful is that it is one-sided. They feel the ache while you grow stronger in your distance. They are haunted by memories while you are building new ones. They are chained to the past, replaying it endlessly while you are creating a new future. Time, therefore, does not just magnify their regret, it also magnifies the gap between where you are and where they are stuck. This contrast makes the regret burn even more deeply because they can see clearly what they lost and how it cannot be reclaimed. The longer the time without you stretches, the more they come to understand that what they once dismissed was the very thing they needed most. They may try to reach back, they may attempt to undo the silence, but deep inside they know that time has already spoken its truth. Regret grows heavier, sharper, and more unrelenting with every moment of absence. And it becomes the invisible burden they carry in their heart, a constant reminder that the choices they made came with a price they can no longer avoid. When you step away from someone's life, you do not just leave behind silence. You leave behind an opportunity for transformation. Your growth becomes a mirror they cannot escape. And that mirror reflects not only what they lost, but also how much greater you have become in their absence. While they are trapped in cycles of regret, trying to fill the void you once occupied, you are elevating, building, and expanding yourself. And nothing creates more pain for someone who let you go than watching you evolve into the very version of yourself they never believed you could be. Growth in your absence is not only healing for you, it is a form of silent revenge that requires no words, no confrontation, and no explanation. The more you invest in yourself after stepping away, the more obvious it becomes that their neglect was their own downfall. Every improvement you make, whether in your appearance, your career, your mindset, or your spirit, becomes undeniable evidence that you were never the problem they were. And as you rise, their memory of you does not remain stagnant. It evolves with you. They do not only remember who you were when you were with them, they now have to face who you are becoming without them. That realization cuts deep because it proves that their presence was never the source of your growth. In fact, your absence from them accelerated it. The painful irony for them is that the very distance they created is what gave you room to shine. While they were expecting you to crumble, to wait, to chase, you chose to focus inward and transform. Every achievement you reach in their absence intensifies the ache in their heart because it highlights the contrast between your trajectory and theirs. They expected you to remain where they left you, but instead you used that silence as fuel. You built discipline where there was once distraction. You gained strength where there was once weakness. You found clarity where there was once confusion. And as you evolve, they cannot help but notice. Growth is visible even from afar. They may not speak to you, but they see it. They may not admit it, but they feel it. A new confidence in your energy, a glow in your presence, a sense of purpose in your actions. All of these things send signals that are impossible to ignore. And every signal stings because it reminds them that they underestimated you. It reminds them that they misjudged your strength, that they treated you as ordinary when you were extraordinary all along. The more you grow, the more their pain grows, because your progress is undeniable proof of what they lost. Your growth also exposes their stagnation. While you are moving forward, they are stuck in the same patterns, the same habits, the same routines. The gap between your reality and theirs widens with time, and that gap becomes a source of torment. They cannot escape the comparison because human nature naturally measures progress. They see you glowing, achieving, and elevating. And whether they admit it or not, they measure themselves against that image. The more you shine, the dimmer they feel, and that feeling of inadequacy intensifies the regret already rooted in their heart. It is important to understand that your growth is not just about external achievements. Yes, success, beauty, and wealth are powerful, but the most painful growth for them to witness is your inner transformation. When they see that you are at peace without them, when they realize that you no longer depend on them for validation, when they notice that you carry yourself with dignity and strength, it strikes harder than any material achievement ever could. Because this kind of growth proves that their absence did not destroy you, it liberated you. And that truth alone is enough to torment them every single day. The more you grow, the more you attract new opportunities, new people, and new experiences into your life. This is another layer of pain for them because they begin to see that others now value you in ways they never did. They notice the respect, the admiration, the recognition you command, and it reminds them that they once had access to all of that but squandered it. Watching you become desired, admired, and appreciated by others magnifies their loss because it proves that you were always worthy. It was their blindness that caused the separation. Growth also rewrites the narrative. In the beginning, they may have convinced themselves that losing you was insignificant, that you would always remain at the same level waiting for them. But when they witness your transformation, the story changes. They can no longer paint you as someone dependent on them because your success disproves it. They can no longer imagine you broken because your resilience disproves it. Every step you take forward erases the illusion that they built to comfort themselves and forces them to face the harsh reality that they made a mistake of immeasurable cost. The pain of your growth is not only in what you have become, but also in what they realize they can never access again. They may want to return, they may want to reinsert themselves into your life, but deep down they know the version of you they left behind no longer exists. You have outgrown them, and that truth is unbearable. Growth becomes the final wall between you and them, a wall built not from anger but from evolution. They cannot climb it, they cannot break it, and they cannot deny it. The stronger you become, the weaker their position grows, until all they are left with is the memory of someone they once knew, now transformed into someone they cannot reach. Scarcity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, and it applies not only to objects or opportunities, but also to people. When something is always available, when it is easy to reach, easy to access, and easy to take for granted, it loses its perceived value. The mind naturally assumes that what is abundant will always remain, and therefore it does not treat it with urgency or care. But the moment that abundance is withdrawn, when availability is cut off, when what was once freely given becomes rare, the human mind shifts. Suddenly, what was overlooked becomes desirable. What was ignored becomes precious. What was neglected begins to hurt. This is the law of scarcity, and it is why your absence has more power than your constant presence ever could. when you are always there, answering every call, replying to every message, showing up whenever asked, your value is diluted in the eyes of the one receiving it. They believe they do not have to earn you. They believe they do not have to cherish you because you are abundant. But when you pull back, when you decide to no longer be accessible at their convenience, you shift the balance completely. What they thought was guaranteed now feels uncertain. What they assumed would always be available suddenly feels rare. That scarcity alone creates desire, because people only pursue what they fear losing. This principle can be seen everywhere in life. Diamonds are valued not just because they are beautiful, but because they are rare. Opportunities that are limited in number always generate more urgency and attention than those available to everyone. The moment something is labeled limited edition or last chance, it instantly becomes more attractive. The same psychology applies to you. When you make yourself scarce, you communicate silently that your time, your energy, and your presence are not infinite. You are not a resource to be used freely without recognition. You are rare, and rarity commands respect. The longer you withhold your availability, the stronger this truth becomes. At first, they may not notice your absence, but as days stretch into weeks, the reality sets in that you are no longer easy to reach. They begin to realize that you do not revolve around them, that your world does not pause to wait for their attention. The more you maintain that scarcity, the more they feel the pressure of missing out. And missing out is one of the greatest emotional triggers humans experience. The fear of loss always outweighs the comfort of abundance. Scarcity also forces them to evaluate your true worth. When you were always available, they never had to measure how important you were because you never gave them the chance to miss you. But when you step back, when you go silent, they are forced to ask themselves, what did I really have? And what did I really lose? That questioning is painful because it leads to the realization that they undervalued something that was never ordinary. Scarcity exposes their blindness, and once the veil is lifted, it is impossible for them to see you the same way again. Another dimension of scarcity is competition. When you step away and grow, your value in the eyes of others increases. New people begin to recognize your worth. New opportunities open up for you. New experiences come into your life. The one who once took you for granted now sees that they are not the only one who could have had access to you. This creates urgency because scarcity combined with competition triggers the deepest fears of the human ego, the fear of being replaced. As your value becomes evident to others, the one who lost you realizes that they are now shut out from something that others now desire. That realization burns because it proves they let go of something others see as priceless. Scarcity also restores balance to your self-worth. When you understand this law, you no longer waste energy over explaining, chasing, or proving yourself. You realize that by simply withdrawing your availability, you elevate your value. You no longer feel the need to force recognition because scarcity guarantees it. Your silence becomes louder than your words. Your absence becomes heavier than your presence, and your distance becomes a teacher they cannot ignore. While abundance makes you invisible, scarcity makes you unforgettable. The longer you maintain this position, the more powerful the effect becomes. Scarcity grows with time because every moment you remain unavailable magnifies the weight of what they lost. The law of scarcity does not weaken, it compounds. Just as rare objects become more valuable with every passing year, your absence grows heavier with each day. They begin to measure your value not in the moments they had with you, but in the moments they no longer have. And that calculation always tips toward pain because the human mind clings more tightly to what is gone than to what is present. Your scarcity also changes the way they see themselves. When you were abundant, they felt powerful, entitled, and secure. But when you withdraw, they are forced to face feelings of inadequacy and doubt. They question why they no longer have access. They wonder if they were ever truly worthy. They replay their choices and actions trying to find where they went wrong. Scarcity not only elevates you, it humbles them. It puts them in a place of yearning while you remain in a place of control. The law of scarcity ensures that the more rare you make yourself, the more irreplaceable you become in their mind. They cannot undo the memory of having access to you, and they cannot stop themselves from desiring it again. Every attempt to fill the gap will fail because nothing abundant can replace what is rare. They will always feel the void, they will always sense the loss, and they will always recognize that by taking you for granted, they allowed scarcity to transform you into something beyond their reach.